This video made possible by Killer Visual Strategies. Visit killervisualstrategies.com.
Let's have some fun here. So tomorrow, we're actually doing something really great here on stage. So a quick promo. We're doing our elevator pitch competition, which is a fun competition in which early stage entrepreneurs pitch their business concepts in 32 seconds, in this case on stage, but in the past, in the elevator of Smith Tower. And so they're going to be, the finalists of this competition are going to be here on stage tomorrow morning. It's going to be a fun session. So I thought I would give each of our panelists here the opportunity, I just sprung this on them, to give their 32-second pitch and to give us a little sense of who they are and what they do. So Eugenio of Auth0, I'll start with you. 32 seconds. You're on the clock.
We provide an authentication and authorization service for developers.
Well, that's even quicker than 32 seconds. Even better. All right, Dan, what do you do at Convoy?
In the US, there are hundreds of millions of truckloads of freight moved every year by nearly a million small trucking companies. That is super inefficient and wasteful, both from an empty miles driven, fuel, time, energy perspective. We are reducing that fragmentation and creating massive efficiencies in the industry that increase the service experience for shippers like Procter & Gamble and lower the cost for everybody.
I think you would have hit it right on the mark, getting up the elevator. Nice work. Manny.
We're Outreach. We're the #1 sales engagement platform. What we do is we make sure that your reps generate more activities, higher quality activities, which leads to more meetings and more revenue. On average, we drive more than 30% average production per rep increase, and we do it for companies as large as GE and as small as one-person companies.
These guys are pros. Let's hear it. That was on the spot. Well done. Well done.
4 seconds.
Yes, so hey, that works. 4 seconds. You got to be concise in your messaging. So you often get labeled as unicorns. These are companies that are $1 billion or more in value, have raised a lot of capital. We're going to talk about a lot of things today: leadership, culture, the economy, startups, trends in investing and technology. But I wanted to start kind of with your own personal management style and how you are perceived in your companies or the greater community. So even though you get the label of a unicorn thrown on you, I want you to tell us and tell the GeekWire Summit audience here what mythical creature or sci-fi creature or fictional character best represents your own management style. Who's Superman? Who's, you can get creative here.
Okay, I'll start.
Dan's going to start. All right.
Start with the English speaker.
So it's really a great question, John. I have 8 and 10-year-old daughters. I've been reading books with them, and I was thinking about these different characters. I think Harry Potter. I feel like just constantly running into trouble. Like things are always crazy around Harry Potter, but he's always focused. He comes through, makes it happen. So I want to feel like that's the life of a startup, and that's like the attitude you have to have is just no matter what happens, be resourceful, figure it out, and be optimistic. And then my 8-year-old daughter the other night read me Garfield for like half an hour, and I remember thinking, I was like, this cat is really, he gets what he wants. He kind of makes things happen, pretty persuasive. So I feel like I could probably learn a lot from Garfield as my other fictional character.
Manny, Eugenio, who's up?
All right, I'll take it. So, my daughter, for a period, was very much into Greek mythology, so I got to read a lot of things about Greek mythology. And one of the ones that really struck me was Pegasus, because Pegasus was born, and the moment he was born, he flew into thunder and lightning without any fear and with the resolution to just get through whatever trouble was in front of it. And I feel like as a leader, that's my nature. In the nature of the company as a whole, we run to fires. And we invite others to run to fires with us and head on. And it represents, as we were brainstorming this with Margaret from my team, she reminded me that the Pegasus was also the symbol of the British forces in World War II that were coming into and occupied Europe to rescue people, and it was somebody riding on a Pegasus. So we feel like the spirit of camaraderie and the spirit of being there for somebody else really embodies what the animal and I are about.
All right.
I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, so I will probably pick Aragorn as my favorite character. And I think in that it's some of the traits that I admire and I like for myself. One is, somebody is kind, somebody that puts the team and the mission in front of himself, but also somebody that can make tough decisions and when it's needed. So I empathize with that.
There. Well done, well done. So of those themes that we just heard, I mean, you hear running into fire, leading the team, working in chaos. I mean, this is a chaotic process. You're all still pretty young companies when you look at your history. How do you convince people to jump on board that sort of crazy mission?
I thought you were going to say that we were young, not our companies.
Oh yeah, of course you're all young. Yes. But how do you get people to embrace this voyage that you're on?
I think that's the key part, is that it's a voyage. You have to recognize that when you're creating a new company, it's a journey, and the people that you want to attract to that are excited not just about the job that they get to do, but about the story that they get to be a part of. And when we created our values and our culture, we thought a lot about that. And a couple of the values that we live by are, know why. It's never okay to do something just because somebody said so. You have to know the context. If you know the context, you'll be better at acting independently, and you will really be able to sort of be part of the story behind it. I think, and again, there's the journey and the experience of creating something, and then there's the impact you're going to have. And I think connecting what you're doing to things that really matter for people is important. And in our world, we're working with millions of truck drivers who often haven't been in an environment where they felt completely respected, they felt taken advantage of. They're running their truck, trying to make ends meet. It's not super efficient. Not only are they not home enough, they're creating an incredible amount of waste because they're running empty miles all the time. So 35, 40% of the time when a truck's running, it's empty. It's idling at the facility waiting. So we're trying to eliminate that waste and create efficiency. That helps truck drivers get home, be with their families, reduce congestion on the road, dramatically can impact the carbon footprint created by trucking. And we can reduce that. So I think it's sort of that storyline of being part of a company. You're coming in every day thinking about, I want to be part of this creation. And then also, as the outcome of what I'm doing, things that matter to me and my family are being improved. If you can connect those dots, I think people get really excited about it, because everybody that you want to hire is going to be able to get other jobs. So you have to figure out why this is the place they want to spend their time.
Yeah, Manny or Eugenio, how do you lead people towards the fire?
So one of my favorite quotes is by John F. Kennedy, and I may be saying it wrong, but it's about going to the moon. We go to the moon not because it's easy, but because it's hard. And when I sell the job, I always sell the problem, and then for whom are we doing it? And I get people excited about the problem. I mean, why is this worth solving? And why is it worth your time to solve this problem? And all you're gonna get out of it is the satisfaction of solving the problem and seeing that somebody else is using it. So as we all do, we happily entice people out of larger companies in the region to come and work for us. And we do it by telling them how they're gonna be so close to the problem, a lot closer than they could probably be, how they're gonna see the impact right away of their problem-solving skills impacting somebody, and you're gonna get to touch that somebody via a reporter, or actually talking to those people and seeing how the problem gets solved. So the way that you also raise capital is by selling the problem. So this selling the problem has been a theme for us in terms of how do you attract and create a large, vibrant culture of people who are very curious and bought into your mission.
Yeah. Eugenio,
I think it was Shackleton, the British explorer.
Shackleton, and who went to Antarctica and his ship crashed. Yes,
yes,
and
exactly.
they had
that
to
guy,
really yes.
Went a couple times there.
Yes.
And but he placed an advertisement on the newspaper, recruiting for people, sailors and explorers as well. And the way he wrote the article was the advertisement was like, it's going to be cold, it's going to be terrible, we're going to face all these
awful pay.
Yeah. And 100 people showed up the next day. And so I think to what They said, I think the purpose, it's important. I think the journey component is important. It has to be meaningful in every step, in every day of your existence. Doesn't need to, it cannot be like the promise of something great that is going to happen, in years to come. It has to be meaningful, even if it's at a small scale, from the very beginning. And the other thing, maybe what I would add, is that the people that you need at different stages of a company also are different. In the very beginning, you have to be comfortable with a lot of uncertainty and a lot of questions with no answers. Later on, we're at a stage where that's maybe less relevant. It's more important to be more predictable and be more systematic about things. So if anything, that's a big and important component of building your team.
Let's keep on that theme, because how do you select and keep building the team for maybe that more structured environment versus the chaotic environment, and maybe weed out the people who aren't necessarily part of the next chapter of the organization?
Somebody told me that with people you build, you buy, or you borrow. And we've done all of that at the same time. At this stage, there is clearly the importance of buying, meaning like bringing on board people with experience, people who have done it and been there and done that necessarily, not necessarily having to, figure out all your mistakes, from scratch again and again.
Yeah, I think the most important indicator for someone's ability to scale with the companies that's growing is their ability to scale themselves by hiring incredible people, by not being afraid to hire people, who they would view as peers or even more experienced and senior than them, and being able to convince that person to come in and be part of the story. If they can do that, then they will scale with the company. And so I think that's the most important thing. That said, you have to find a way to balance it. It's, as you think about company, I remember one of the things I thought about when I was starting Convoy was I've been part of a bunch of big companies and a bunch of smaller companies. And there's definitely a correlation. As a company gets larger and larger and more mature, a smaller percentage of the workforce walks in every day wanting to knock down walls and shake the world up and change things and try to go fight and win. And so we asked ourselves, how do we, if I'm 10 years down the road, how is it that 50% of my employees feel that way instead of 10? Or 20 instead of 10. If you can do that, you're probably going to be in a really powerful position, because that's the group that's going to change things that keeps you modern. So that's about culture. It's about culture and recognizing what are the characteristics and traits of the people you hire and the environment you create that reward that energy and that sense of risk-taking. So I think you have to learn how to both scale, find the right people that are going to scale, but create an environment where you don't lose the ability to take risks and knock down walls. Otherwise, you'll end up stagnating and you won't figure out the next thing.
So do you all feel as if you've been successful in that as you've raised more money and the pressure has grown with additional capital, additional board pressure? I think what you're saying is stay small while you continue to grow very rapidly. Staying small meaning keeping that entrepreneurial energy. Give maybe some lessons on how you've been successful or maybe not successful with that.
One of the best pieces of advice, what came from, I didn't get it myself, I think I heard it from somebody, it came from Toby from Shopify, who said, surround yourself with builders who hire professionals. So my executive team and my leadership team are all builders, that not only we're building the company, we're building each of the organizations in a way that we can make actually a meaningful difference into the markets that we're selling to. Each of us have found a really large problem to solve, and the beautiful thing about solving large problems is that it doesn't matter what vector you take, there is problems to solve and money to be made in that particular vector. So as long as you're building out the team and hiring the right professionals to solve that particular problem and then doing it again and again and again for each of the vectors of growth, you're going to be in good shape. The second thing that I do that I feel like I've been pretty consistent about is we hire for energy. Because the one thing that you'll never have enough in the company at all times is energy. And you will run out of energy, but you need somebody else to give you that energy to continue to fight.
How do you look for that?
So first of all, it's a very human trait that you feel. So you have to go for feeling. You have to ask the person, and then as you do your references, how does this person motivate others to do things that they wouldn't otherwise do? And there has to be a concrete answer. There has to be a style for it, because not everybody will have the same style of energy, but it has to be there. And if your management team, your leadership team doesn't as a whole feel it, then you're not getting the right outcome out of that person. And it has been a fairly good way for us to grow the team and to continue to keep the vibrancy of the culture as we scale past 400 people at this point.
Yeah, and Eugenio, I would think that's hard with your company because you're so distributed. You have people all over the world. You've really embraced this idea of a remote workforce.
Yeah.
So how do you manage or pick for that energy that Manny's talking about, or just the cultural fit in an organization that's so distributed?
Yeah, I think the distribution, the remoteness of our company, it's makes things a little bit more, not necessarily harder. It's just that makes surfaces problems that in companies that are all in one place kind of remain hidden, and you have to go and undig those situations, because you don't have the benefit of solving a problem or a conflict just in a conversation. You have to be very deliberate on the communication of goals, the communication of tasks. I couldn't agree more with the energy. I see it more on the side of we are biased towards, and I'm biased towards people who can solve the problem, not just be good at diagnosis. Like there's people that are wired up for finding the faults and issues and problems in any system. And then there's others who maybe are not that great and finding every crack in the system, but they also come with the 10 solutions for those problems. And at least in our world, we cannot afford to have everybody coming to me and say, look at all the problems that I found. Great, what makes you think that I have the solution for all the problems that you found? I'm not an expert on anything. We hire people that can do right diagnosis and then come with the solutions.
Yeah. Dan, talk a little bit about, you've really increased your workforce, doubled here in the past year from about 300 to over 750 employees. So do you feel as if you've lost some of that original entrepreneurial energy in the organization and the original core culture of when it was just a few folks in the garage, so to speak?
Culture evolves, yeah. You're never going to have the same culture when you're 3, 5, 10 people as when you're 500 or 700 people, because the company's bigger and you're more spread out, right? So the feeling is going to be a little bit different. But I don't think that we've changed the principles through which we're operating the culture and thinking about developing. It has to be intentional. So we have the same set of principles. What we did is we waited till about a year in. We were about 80, 90, 100 people. When we first started the company, I remember going with my co-founder and our first 5 engineers away for a weekend, and we sat down and said, should we write down our values and who we want to be from a cultural perspective? We'd all worked at places. And we felt like that was really premature. Actually, let's live it. So we built the company, we're about a year in, and then we went down and wrote it all down. What worked? What do we like about ourselves? And then that set of cultural values and the way we think about ourselves and the principles around that have remained the same. We've added a little bit to them over time. So it's not going to feel the same, but as it scales, you really want to have that same outcome. I think that, this is a great, for example, this week's Moonshot Week at Convoy. And this is my Moonshot Week t-shirt from last year, which is
like a truck
coming
flying
over the moon.
Yeah,
the
across
truck.
the moon, if you can't see that.
Yeah. And, it's another thing that we're committed to doing. And what it does is it allows people to step away from what they're doing for a week and come up with an entirely new business. Last year, we did our first international shipment that week. They didn't even tell me we were going to do international shipment. I just found out afterwards, which was great. We built a bunch of really cool new services for the engineering team. We, launched a couple new businesses, and there were 42 projects. This year, I expect over 80. And that's sort of built into the question of we're all solving problems every day. So as you're becoming more and more familiar with the problems that you're working on, you're going to come up with these great ideas and solutions. And I want to encourage that bottoms-up innovation and ideation that we can then use and build from. And if you reward that by letting somebody do it, and then you pick those ideas and fund them and invest in them, that's one of the ways you can create that culture. So I don't think we've lost that spirit. It just takes different systems. And one of the things I asked our company is, how do we feel smaller as we get bigger? I think that's kind of the point you made for. We have to find mechanisms to do that. They will be different mechanisms over time, but that's always going to be the problem. How do you keep that energy?
Is there a core value that you each have at your companies that you think sets you apart or makes you unique? And if so, what is it?
For us, it's having your back.
Having your back?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So is that when you are moving really fast and breaking a few things and making mistakes, as you grow, it becomes, taking risks, it becomes more difficult because your growth stage, you're judged by your percentages of efficiency and so forth. But if you continue to not drive hard and make mistakes, you're not going to innovate. You're going to stagnate. Having your back is a value that allows us to go out there, be at the edge of your abilities, at the edge of the company's abilities, fail, and feel like the company has you. Your team has you. Your team has your back. And it has made an enormous difference in terms of when we hire. Is a rare value to have explicitly. And B, it allows us to actually deliver on the promise of innovation and moving fast.
Eugenio, any core values that you think
so we
separate
actually,
Auth0?
Dan, we didn't encode our values until a couple of years ago. Before that, we just did things in our own way and in a way that we felt that things had to be done. But a couple of years ago, we encoded them, and we ended up with like 10. And it was a mistake because we put things like we are honest and dedicated, stuff like that, like feel good. Who would not want to be honest? You know, it's like things like that. So we decided, we actually did a very, very in-depth exercise on finding our core values, and we ended up with 3. And the first one is we give a shit, and it's about care. This intense care for our customers, intense care for the problem that we're solving, intense care for the team. The second one, we call it N+1 greater than N, which is a little formula that captures the permanent improvement, the permanent evolution of what we do. Every iteration is better than the previous one. And the last one is one team, one score. There's no, like I use football, soccer. I'm from Argentina, so
yes,
football.
we can go off on a tangent here talking about soccer.
Football is a metaphor for life, and so how do we win in football? And many people will answer is like you win by scoring goals, and that's not how you win in football. You win by scoring more goals than the other one. You can score 100 goals, and if the other team scores 101, you lose. And so, like soccer, our team wins as a single team. There's no like sales winning over engineering or support winning over sales or whatever combination. It's so easy to point fingers once your company becomes to grow because each one has its own interests and its own agendas, and you put incentives that are by design contrary to their own agendas. And so in anything we do, we instill that greater goal of Auth0 wins as a whole. It doesn't win only by selling or only by having a great product. Those are our three core values.
Right. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, and I think the one that we have a bunch of values that I just think I really love thinking about them and making them part of our company and telling the story and the history of them and then using them all the time. The one that I want to share that I think really it represents it is bring out the best in others. We call it BOBO for short. And it kind of reminds me of, the culture that you want to have when you do have, Eugenio was mentioning, people are going to have conflict and they're going to be figuring things out. And what we have to remember is for us to be successful and to be a great leader and to really create value for the company, it's not enough to just do your job really well. You have to think about how do you make the people in your organization successful. Anyone from any background should be able to do their best work at Convoy, and you shouldn't be able to check the box and say, look at the 5 things that I accomplished. You should need to say, here's how I brought out the best in this team, and I made that team successful as well. If you have that mindset, then when you become a manager, you don't think, I'm separating myself from people I used to manage. You think, how do I make my team amazing, right? When everyone, I remember one time there was a moment where we're a multi-sided marketplace, right? So different teams we're bringing in trucks and we're bringing in shipments and we're doing operations. And everything kind of has to balance, and that can be challenging. And on any given day, someone's having a harder day than other people. And there was this moment where everyone's like, it was really taxing, we're growing really fast. I remember at this all hands, I was like, look, probably everybody in this room, or every team in here at some point has come up to me and said, Dan, like, we're getting killed. This is hard right now, at some point in the last year. I was like, you're all right. Every one of you has the hardest job on some given day. Like one day you're going to have the hardest job at Convoy. We just have to remember that some other day somebody else has the hardest job. And so it's really about understanding that and then thinking about that as a team. So that's the value that I think really is representing us as we scale. We have to keep that.
One of the things that I've seen works really well is there's two ways to create your core values. One is you go and prospectively see who you want to become, and then you come back to the present and say, these are my core values so I can become that person. Or you plant your feet right now, document who you are, capture it, and then try to stay true to it over a long period of time. And the latter is more powerful in my mind than the former, meaning coming in and saying, we did it when we were 50 people, we got everyone in a room, all 50 of us, and we came up with our 5 initial core values pretty much within 2 hours. It was very easy to just document like who we are as a company, and then work hard on maintaining those values over a long period of time by telling stories, by highlighting people who live those core values at that extreme. And I feel like that's an easier way to grow and to stay sort of young and hungry over time.
So each of you have recently raised rounds at $1 billion valuation or more. Doesn't this just scare the crap out of you?
I've been scared since I started. So it hasn't changed really.
Okay.
It's just keep going with the scare things. Yeah, sure. It's more seriously now. It's it's been to me it's been more like this huge responsibility that we have now. It's like now we are real. We are this thing that can really change how people build applications, how they secure in our world, how they secure applications, how they can just focus all the time on something that it's more important to them than just logging in their users, which everybody has to do, but it's not really core to what they do. And so now walking around, and I can reserve my flight tickets, I can buy clothes, I can read the news, and all of them are our customers. And so, if anything, the round has brought up this higher responsibility for us to deliver on that promise.
Dan or Manny?
Yeah.
How terrified are you?
I mean, I definitely feel similarly. I think this whole thing has been an incredible ride and terrifying. And I think it was after the first time we raised our Series A from Greylock, and the money was in the bank, and I was like, I have a board now, and I have to go tell them how I'm doing, and I have to kind of figure out how I'm going to actually deliver on all the things that I just said less than 1 year into the company. And I think as a founder and CEO, there's a really strong sense of urgency, and I definitely don't ever wake up and think, well, we made it. I just wake up and think, what are all the things I need to do to go accomplish the mission and get this company where I think it should be? And I don't feel like I've let up at all on that, because I think I am somewhere just terrified that like I want to make this happen. This is like it's not the idea of not doing it. It's the realization of the opportunity to really do something impactful. And really, and there's so many people that have joined Convoy because of the story and the narrative and the experience. And I actually was so excited about being part of a growth company before Convoy, and I wanted to be part of this. I feel super lucky that I get to work at Convoy because this is kind of the career experience that I wanted, was to be part of a growth company.
So I want to ask you all about pirate ships versus navies. Reid Hoffman had a great podcast with Dara Khosrowshahi. I think it was the CEO of Uber. I think it was Dara. And they were getting into this idea that startups are either they're pirate ships, they're out there breaking things and raiding things and changing the system radically, or they're more established navies with rules and structure and whatnot. Are there any lessons that you would take from kind of the break the rules, grow at all costs mentality of an Uber or more recently a WeWork that you've applied to your existing companies?
I think that as a company grows, they break everything. It's very irresponsible. In our world, we are in security. We are the login screen of thousands of applications in the world. We have 7,000 customers, paying customers. We have 17,000 free customers that are using our system in production. It would be really irresponsible for us to go and change an API and make it incompatible, and all of a sudden, thousands of applications in the world are not able to have their users logging into the systems, right? So we could do that when we had like one paying customer, because I could call him and say, hey, when I change these, can you go and update the API? Oh yeah, sure, I can do that, and that's it. But over time, the trick has been in choosing how you break things and what are the sandboxes that you put your code in or your experiments in, so you can do it in a way that it's responsible with your customer base.
Manny, for you, any lessons from the WeWork Uber strategy of growing at all costs and breaking a lot of stuff along the way?
Yeah, it's hard for me to even relate to that story, to be honest. I mean, we sell to enterprises. Sales team runs on outreach. I can't break things.
Yeah.
We're talking about running scared, but my scare moment was at the very beginning when we went from 0 to $1 million to about 4 million in ARR in about a year. And I mean, we're scared constantly of what are people doing that is going to break something. So we were on call the entire time. And I feel that that not being responsible to the promise that you made to your customers, it's just not right. And we were always very close to what is the value that we're delivering? Why are we here? What do we get to play in the next hand? And it's always by delivering value to the customers at an accelerated rate. So I can't imagine Eugenio or Dan just breaking something for the trucker or for the security specialist, because you need to deliver on the promise that you made.
Yeah, but is there ever an example of something where maybe you were iterating so fast that you did break something unintentionally? I mean, obviously you weren't trying to, but you did, and then you recognized it, and how did you recover from that situation? And what did you learn from it?
Yeah, you just work all night until it's fixed.
We made lots of mistakes. Yes, we had outages, we had problems with our service, but I yet have to find a customer that we have lost because of that. If anything, it has strengthened our relationship with our customers. I met with a customer a couple of years ago. We had an outage that affected this particular customer, and I showed up what I did is what I do in the same situation. I showed up and said, look, I'm sorry, we screwed up this shouldn't have happened. These are all the things that we're doing so this doesn't happen ever again. And first of all, he was very appreciative. And second, he said, well, for the first time in my life, I'm sitting on the other side of the table, and somebody else is apologizing to me, and I'm apologizing to you. And so, trust is a very, very difficult to earn thing. And once you lose it, it's really difficult to regain it. And so there's no upside in putting your trust that costs so much to earn at risk by being irresponsible. So we guard that a lot. Do we make mistakes? Of course, because we are human. But the biggest mistake is not learning from the mistake you made, not just saying 0 mistakes.
And I guess that's a follow-up question. Have you ever been in a situation where you are growing and scaling so fast that you can't recognize the mistakes and learn from those mistakes because it's growth, growth, growth?
In our world, maybe we were lucky. We recognized all the mistakes that we made because they hit us back very visibly, at least to me. And so, actually, I kind of welcome problems and challenges. Sometimes people say, like, well, why would you welcome an outage, or how would you welcome a very angry support ticket from a customer? I actually believe that all the things that happen in your business and in your life, that's a different conversation, are all gifts that are kind of wrapped in an ugly envelope. But every of those situations.
I know Eugenio's
really
a student of philosophy, so I love the path you're going on here. This is great.
So I really like that, and I embrace that, and I say, like, yes, we're gonna screw up many times, but it's not the screw up that matters, it's what you do with the screw up. And you have always allowed us to be better.
Great. So unicorns and high-value companies are in the news a lot this day. I actually did a Google search for unicorn, and when you get past, onto the Google News page and you look for unicorns plus the mythical creature, here are a couple of the headlines that popped up. After latest IPO setbacks, there's a unicorn blood in the streets. The unicorn bubble is bursting, said another one. So your unicorns, you have a lot of high value, a lot of money tied up into you. When you see headlines like that and look at the general economy, what is your reaction?
I don't think it impacts us. I mean, I think that we're creating a business, and I think this is what you have to just believe, like, the thing we're doing is really important for our customers. And I don't care exactly like what our status is unicorn or not. It's, the way that trucking operates today is inefficient. It wastes time, it creates a huge amount of extra unnecessary emissions. There's a lot of additional cost. Facilities are crazy getting in and out. And technology and data will make that better. And I think the most important thing is just staying heads down, focusing on delivering on that mission. And if you have a real business that people need, that the economy needs, that's operating, just focus on doing that. And that's really how we think about it. And I don't get distracted by the titles.
Manny, what are your reactions to the recent bloodbath in the unicorn ranks?
I think I just came from, I was with Eugenio at the Cloud 100 Awards, and the innovation is real. There's real value to be had from moving on-prem to moving to the cloud. There's real value to be had of putting your workflows on Outreach. There's real value to be had from moving your pen and paper, trucking, booking to an online system that optimizes it. There's real value to be had. AI really works, and the promise of the promised land of automation, it's delivering real dollars. So I don't think that there is hyperbole around the value created. The word unicorn is just being overused right now because there's anybody with a high inflated valuation can qualify, but in our business at least, where you're delivering real value, it's just an expectation on the value delivery in the future. So I don't see anything wrong with it. Again, a lot of the companies in the Cloud 100, we use a lot of them ourselves to make us more efficient. So this train has left the station, and there's just going to be growth around in that path.
On the VC panel that we just heard from, there was a talk about whether there's any preparation for a recession. How are you dealing with that internally at your own organizations?
By raising a lot of money.
Rainy day fund?
Just get ready for it.
Raising money, and I think also, we're in a business that's actually interesting. Trucking is kind of counter-cyclical. If you look at when brokerages have grown the quickest relative to the broader trucking market, it was during the recession right after 2001, and then in 2008, some of them grew really fast because it creates efficiency and reduces waste and makes things operate more smoothly during those times. So we want to put ourselves in a good financial position, and then we want to take advantage of the market if it does go in that direction, because that's a really good time for efficiency businesses.
Great. So I know we started with kind of your mythical creature idea. Well, I'll ask you this. If you were to run any other unicorn company, what would it be and why? Or are you just two heads down running your own companies that you don't even know who else exists out there?
I'll throw one out there. It's another Seattle company that I think is great, and I don't know if Matt's here, Remitly.
Yeah.
I love the impact and the mission behind what that company can do. Sort of you think about, we're trying to make transportation seamless and easy. They're trying to make the ability to transfer, money around the world to people that need it, and kind of, there's a lot of really good things I think that company can do, and it's a super complicated, gnarly, hard problem, global impact. I just think it's fun and interesting. I think financial services have so many other businesses you can spin up out of them that I think they're building a really good foundation.
Cool.
Anyway,
Manny?
I've never told Matt that, so
Yes.
I wonder what he'll think of that when I say it.
We'll try to recruit you
After
to this
Convoy,
team.
Matt.
Yeah, Manny or Eugenio?
I'm pretty heads down, but I think I can sell a lot more Convoy than Dan can. just put me in, coach.
Do you have the outsourced
I can do it.
Convoy sales model?
And we'll end on this, and I appreciate all the time, but it's kind of, you've all been on this really crazy voyage, hyper growth, blitz scaling, if you will. I'm sure you've encountered crazy chaos along the way, and this is navigated on a path that you never imagined. But if you can think back to those early days when you were just getting started at Outreach or Convoy or Auth0, what's the advice now that you would give to yourself as an entrepreneur?
So Auth0 is technically my second company. My first company, I started when I finished school, and it was a complete disaster. And I took like a 25-year break in between, and then, here I am again. The advice would be for my first version of the Eugenio Entrepreneur V1, and it would be being an engineer. I really had like very, very low opinion of anything other than engineering, sales and marketing. I thought it was all like completely satellite, and I was completely wrong. So if it was one piece of advice, I would say, go and learn how to sell anything in life. And so I wish I had a lemonade stand when I was really, really young. I didn't.
Dan, how about you? What advice would you give to your younger Convoy self?
This is my first time I've started a company, and I think that, I would probably, I feel like some of I look back, I'm like, okay, the decisions have worked out pretty well, so I want to change so many things. But I think what I'd really focus on is just trust your instincts. Listen, absorb information, and then really do what you feel is the right thing to do. Because at the end of the day, you're responsible for the decisions, for the direction, for the outcome, and you can't be disingenuous with yourself. You just have to be who you are, lean into your strengths, and there's temptation along the way to try to do something differently, or say, oh, that person did that thing, I'm gonna try to change who I am a little bit with the companies. Anytime you try to go on that path, it doesn't last. So I just figure, I think it's much better to be lean into who you are and then sell that versus trying to look at the right model and figure out who you want to be as a leader. Just be yourself.
Manny?
Yeah, it's more along Dan's point. I think that the sooner you find out your core, the happier you're going to be doing what you do. So it took me a little bit of iterations to sort of centering what I'm good at and what I'm not good at, what I'm going to bet on, and who am I going to be. The other thing I would tell myself is to start earlier. I would have started Outreach maybe 5 years earlier than I did, but here we are.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, let's have a big round of applause for Eugenio, Dan, and Manny. Great stuff. Thank you for being here at the GeekWire Summit. And I could be talking to you for hours, but we'll have to move to the next session. Thank you so much for being here, guys.
Awesome.
Appreciate
Good
it.
stuff.
Thank you.
That's great. Thanks to each of you for being here, or should I say to Aragorn, Harry Potter, and Pegasus. Thanks for being here.